If Notre Dame was kicking T into Boston Harbor, it clearly would have missed, but it scored enough touchdowns that all those missed kicks did not matter in a 25-10 victory against Boston College on the road. This is Irish Illustrated's Overtime Live. I'm your host, John Brice, joined by our esteemed guest, Drew Mentock, as well as our fabulous producer, Tom Zwiller. Drew, you were live from Boston. Was it as ugly in person as it appeared on all these HD TV screens?
I have to think so. This was not the performance I think anyone really came into here expecting from Notre Dame. They came out and it was ugly from the beginning, except for the defense, but offensively they really set the standard for how this game would look throughout much of the contest for Notre Dame. Really struggling when they got into decent territory. And I think they had averaged 4.4 yards per play in the first quarter against a Boston College defense that was one of the bottom 20 or 25 in the nation. So just not what you expected. And then the defense ended up having some of its lapses later too, but it was just not a great looking performance. I think some of the Boston College media, a lot of them who are eating popcorn and watching more than they seem to be working, seem to be enjoying it and commenting a lot on how Notre Dame was doing everything you would do in a game to lose to this type of Boston College team. And it was hard to disagree with that.
All fair points, but it's a 2-touchdown win for Notre Dame. It's a win where Notre Dame, to me, the ultimate sign of victory is when you're dealing on an opponent's throat to end the game. Notre Dame had no interest in tacking on a late touchdown because it had secured a victory. It was moving on to the rest of November. We already joked this week. They remember what you do in November. Well, hey, let's not forget that Miami lost a game today in which its $4 million quarterback was once again absolutely atrocious. That's 2 losses in 3 weeks for the Hurricanes, who were ranked ahead of Notre Dame and beat Notre Dame head-to-head to open the season. Let's not forget Vanderbilt also lost today, technically ranked ahead of the Irish. And so Notre Dame did what it had to do to take care of business. It was an ugly win. Marcus Freeman will never apologize for wins, nor should he. There's a lot of ugly to dissect about this game, and it's not at all what we've become accustomed to seeing from Notre Dame out of Marcus Freeman, out of bye weeks. Even though the Irish lost out of a bye week earlier this year, coming on the heels of Texas A&M, they scored 40 points. They did a lot of great things in that game. They frankly had no business losing that game and kind of found a way to lose while A&M galvanized its season and found a way to win. Today, the Irish found a way to win. CJ Carr was incredibly efficient. As efficient as CJ Carr was, is the complete 180 for what the Notre Dame special teams were. It wasn't just missed PATs and 2 more of those, as well as a failed 2-point conversion today. I mean, 6 times this year, Notre Dame has scored a touchdown and not converted on the extra point attempt, be it a PAT or a 2-point conversion attempt. That's not good. The red zone woes continue, but Jeremiyah Love further etches himself into the history books. CJ Carr takes another step forward, and Notre Dame got one of the best performances from a linebacker in the modern era, and it happened to be Drake Bowen, who had 14 tackles in the win for Notre Dame, Drew.
Definitely. Drake Bowen, I mean, to your point, he also had 2 tackles for loss, a sack, and a pass breakup again, he continues to look better and better in coverage, and he only had 2 tackles at the half too. So for 12 tackles in the second half in a game that was much closer than you would have wanted it to. Now, maybe some of that's aided by the 21-yard or 21-play drive by Boston College to open the second half. But I agree, you had some of their best players play well, even if the team as a whole didn't play well. I agreed. CJ Carr looked good. I think he started 1 for 3, but one was a throwaway, one was a drop pass. Like, his numbers actually probably could have been even a little more efficient in some of those throws downfield, other than overthrowing Malachi Fields late. And I guess he did have a pick get taken away because of a holding call. But other than that, his deep ball was back and he looked good there. And Jeremiyah Love ran hard. He had some tough yards early in the game when they needed them. And then, as soon as he kind of got maybe 10 yards through that hole on that 94 touchdown run, you kind of knew he was gone and there was no one catching him.
Well, he certainly knew he was gone because he was just checking out the Notre Dame sideline to see what the reaction was of his coaches and teammates as he uncorked the 94-yard run, only the second longest of his career. Yeah, that's how good he is. 98 yards, as we know, a year ago on Notre Dame's first play from scrimmage on offense in the college football playoff opener against Indiana. But we can't ignore the bad, and there was too much bad in today's contest from the special teams, from the red zone woes, some very costly, untimely penalties for the Irish. And, at one point in time, Marcus Freeman called those selfish penalties. They were certainly ill-advised penalties, not mature penalties. And Notre Dame finishes the day 7 penalties for 67 yards. The 21-play scoring drive that Boston College had to open things up in the second half, the longest by play in the entirety of Marcus Freeman's association with the Notre Dame football program, not just his 4 seasons now as head coach, but also his 1 season as defensive coordinator. There'd been some 94 and 95-yard scoring marches against the Irish in the Marcus Freeman era. There had been multiple 14 and 15-yard plays. There had never been a 21-play, 11-minute, 20-second scoring drive by the opposition against Notre Dame in the entire association of Marcus Freeman.
Wow. And that was, one of the more impressive drives that you could have seen from Boston College, and came at a time where, I'm sure they're disappointed with the field goal, but put them within 2. And that was, again, the exact type of drive you want as a team trying to upset Notre Dame, is to really chew the clock, make CJ Carr and the rest of the offense sit over there for a while. So I do think it's worth noting that after doing that, it give Notre Dame a lot of kudos for kind of responding, because that is the type of game where a drive where you're sitting over there and it starts getting in your head, like, what's going to happen? Like, they're doing what they want. They converted, I forget, multiple 4th downs on that drive until the last one where, and then, at least 3, correct. And then they had the one where it probably shouldn't have been a face mask. It was hard to tell from the press box, but based on everyone else's reaction on
that was not a face mask.
Yeah. So they did get some help there, but still an impressive drive. And it is, if you're looking for positives, good that Notre Dame responded the way they did after kind of getting something that could have kind of broken its back and put them in kind of a bad headspace.
Yeah, and I know one of the comments there, why did Marcus Freeman work on the kicking game any in the past 2 weeks? Folly to think that Notre Dame didn't work on the kicking game. Moreover, as we noted earlier this week, Noah Burnett had received some additional medical treatment. So it's very surprising that the struggles continue to this point, given how cognizant Notre Dame has been of Noah Burnett's workload, given the fact that he got some extra treatment during the open date, and given the fact that we're not talking about Noah Burnett being asked to go kick 49-yard field goals. We're talking about Noah Burnett and then Eric Schmidt and then Marcelo Diomede being asked to kick extra points. And only Schmidt finally was able to get that done. As I noted, 2 hours and 44 minutes after the opening kickoff did Notre Dame make its first PAT on the day. I will disagree with the comment there saying no spin, Notre Dame's out of the playoffs right now. I completely disagree with that. I just noted to you that Miami lost today, that Vanderbilt lost today. Miami might be a coin flip if the Hurricanes are going to still be ranked ahead of the Irish, given the fact that they won head-to-head. Vanderbilt's not going to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. Boise State, not a great result for Notre Dame, but Boise State looked terrible today. Georgia, very lucky to win today against a Florida team that's playing under an interim head coach who's never been a head coach. College football is entirely unpredictable. Notre Dame has to keep stacking wins. I saw the stat on the broadcast that they're the first team since 2020 Iowa to start 0-2 at the power conference level and then improve to 6-2. The best Notre Dame can do next week is go to 7-2 and keep stacking wins. So, Drew, big picture, a lot to certainly lament about this Notre Dame performance. But again, I will contend in a time where, look, we saw Tulane basically take itself off the playing field this week as the potential group of 5 playoff team. We've seen some other teams stub their toes. We noted Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt put some cosmetic brushstrokes on a game that they trailed 34-10 before losing 34-31. Miami has lost 2 out of 3. Clemson hasn't won a home football game against a power conference opponent in 380 days. There's a lot for Notre Dame to be upset about. There's a lot of perspective to note. Things could be a lot worse.
Yes, and I think I saw today that this was the Miami's first game outside of the state of Florida too. So finally traveling even a moderate amount of distance and didn't look very good going to Texas today. But I agree, they're definitely not out of the playoffs, and I think that's really good perspective. Like the Solid Verbal podcast always says, to win your clunkers, and Notre Dame won, and they won by 15, still 13.5 points short of the spread. I do think this is not the type of performance that you wanted going into the first college football playoff rankings. I think that's going to be fresh in their minds, and kind of where they start you in those rankings, they kind of hold you there, and then you have to kind of work off that perception. So if they kind of coming up with a big win today, more substantial, where they looked better, you would think they're probably going to be ranked ahead of Miami, which would be a big deal in where you wanted to be. So they definitely hurt themselves, but I agree that the sky isn't falling. Like, they still got the win. It never, the 21 play drive, like, definitely had you kind of, oh man, what's going to happen here? But you never really felt like Notre Dame was going to lose this game either. Like, it didn't feel like NIU or some of those other games where you were like, oh man, what's going on? So they didn't feel completely out of it. I'm curious how some of the computer polls even look at this, because if you look at Notre Dame's efficiency on both sides of the ball, bad in the red zone, but they still averaged 8.3 yards per play. I think around their second best in the season. They only allowed 3.6 yards per play. That's also really good, despite some of those long drives. But again, they had to convert on 4th down. So I think those things might help them, but it just the optics and the feel of the game, depending on how much the committee really looks at it and watches it through, we'll be kind of curious on how that impacts the perception.
Yeah, and Notre Dame gave up 12 net rushing yards. So again, I call this ideal. Most of the time, this is ideal for coaches. They want to win, and they want to have a hell of a lot of teach tape. There's more teach tape than Notre Dame should have had today, certainly than Notre Dame wanted to have today. But as noted, the loser of that Texas-Vanderbilt game was going to be eliminated from playoff consideration because it was going to be that team's 3rd loss. Vanderbilt got its 3rd loss. Texas still has to go to Georgia next week. Texas still has Texas A&M. It has time to eliminate itself. Tonight, getting ready to kick off right now inside Neyland Stadium, Oklahoma and Tennessee play. It will be the loser of that game's 3rd loss. It's a college football playoff eliminator. Notre Dame did not eliminate itself from the postseason today. And as we continue to break down various components of the Notre Dame play today, I would like to dive in a little bit more, Drew, on CJ Carr and what he did today. Coming out of an open date, I know the ESPN stat. I appreciate those of you on Twitter and elsewhere who said that ESPN is stealing my real-time metrics now, but ESPN said that CJ Carr went 2 hours and 9 minutes or some crazy amount of time in between incomplete passes, a clear additional step forward for Notre Dame's redshirt freshman quarterback, who still only started 8 games, who completed 72% of his passes today, who threw for 300 yards and should have had 350 and one more touchdown, but he overthrew Malachi Fields late.
Yes, and I think this is good after what we saw from USC, which was clearly the worst game of his career so far, to see him kind of bounce back after he had that rest he needed, taking a weekend off from pressure. Like, speaking to him on Tuesday, you could really tell, and he said as much, that he needed this time off, that season just kind of was a blur. And he's just, putting a lot on his plate. And he's definitely somebody, as we saw in fall camp, who kind of feels that pressure. So for him to get the break, come back, show he can be a really efficient passer, only made one really bad throw, which again, the holding penalty on Boston College even took that away. That really helped to kind of see where he's going. And it needs to happen when a team is keen so much on the run, like Boston College clearly did early in the game. He needs to be able to make those plays. And he definitely did that tonight.
Yeah, and then, Drew, we also can't talk about the issues in this game without talking about another fumble in a goal line situation for Jadarian Price. I forget what the stat is. That might be 3 fumbles this season alone in the red zone for Jadarian Price. We know that's been a multiple issue before. Good job on the person who corrected me that was the second loss for Vanderbilt, but they're not done losing. They still have to play Tennessee later this season. They've still got some other difficult games, and so I feel like that Vanderbilt is kind of losing itself out of this. But you're right, that was just their second loss, but they were ninth. They suffered their second loss. They'll drop behind. They'll drop behind Notre Dame, and again, Notre Dame handled business the way it had to. Pittsburgh got a win today. That was significant. Navy did not get a win. That didn't do Notre Dame any favors, but Notre Dame only can control what it can control.
Yes, I think the Price thing is concerning. I mean, third fumble inside the 5, like that's not what you want to see. And especially after he started to improve some in short yardage, like you're hoping over this last month, especially if Notre Dame is making the playoff push, that he can be the reliable running back you need to keep Jeremiyah Love off the field a little bit more. And as the stats are showing on the screen right now, 9 carries for 12 yards and a fumble. Like after he's had some really magnificent games, that's not what you expect out of a player of his caliber. And I mean, I appreciate even on that fumble, he was fighting for extra yards, but he needs to protect that ball better. Like the defender did clearly get 2 hands on the ball and rip it, and it was a nice play by him, but he can't keep making these plays. And it's clearly something that's going to weigh on the coach's mind. And yeah, you're hoping Jeremiyah Love doesn't play too much and get hurt for the playoffs like he did last year. And those type of plays make you be a little more concerned, especially with Jawan Sider only really playing 2 running backs, unlike what they did last year. So
that was about to be my next point, Drew. And I know that we launched into this live show as quickly as possible, which kind of precludes each of our respective participation in any post-game interviews. But I continue to be absolutely stunned that Aeneas Williams has burned his red shirt and is a complete non-factor for this Notre Dame offense. And I know we've asked some questions about it. I'm sure we'll ask continued questions about it next week as we meet with Marcus Freeman and assistant coaches and players as Notre Dame turns its page toward Navy. But I am positively stunned that we have seen nothing of any sort of noteworthiness out of Aeneas Williams this season, especially considering the crucial role that he carved a year ago as a true freshman who really earned that role in preseason camp and in early season play. It's not like he had done that and had redshirted a year and then came in and earned that role. No, he earned that as a true freshman, and now as a true sophomore, he's a ghost on Halloween weekend.
Yes, I agree. That's absolutely surprising. I mean, I knew coming into the season that Sider just only played 2 running backs last year. You were maybe hoping like, well, not hoping, but considering like, well, maybe their third running back wasn't Aeneas Williams, and that's part of the reason why. But clearly, and Williams was banged up in fall camp, and I'm sure that has something to do with maybe him kind of getting to where he would be to be contributing. But clearly, Sider doesn't have that. I forget how many jobs Dylan McCullough had, and every running back could earn a role through being the best at one of those things. That's just not how they're doing things. But it is curious, especially as we get to this point in the season where you do need guys to stay healthy, and you don't want to put too much on Jeremiyah Love, who's, I mean, arguably the best skill player in the entire country.
Yeah. And again, great points there on kind of where this Notre Dame team is, what's going on offensively. More improvement from the offensive line today overall, I thought. We especially the way that the group walled off Jeremiyah Love's touchdown run, and then you saw Jordan Faison run some interference, maybe 6 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then Malachi Fields coming all the way downfield just to provide the Secret Service escort of Jeremiyah Love into the end zone after he had celebrated with his teammates. But again, a great stat there from our Tom Zwiller that Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, and Drew Aller accounted for 78% of Penn State's rushing yards a year ago. We're very much seeing that again today. Nobody with an official carry beyond the trio of Jeremiyah Love, who closes with 136 yards, Jadarian Price, who closes with 12 yards on 9 carries, and then CJ Carr, also 12 yards on just 2 carries, including a 10-yard run early in the game when he needed to help the offense extend a drive and get some things going. We haven't talked about him. I thought a really key game today for Eli Raridan. Drew 3 catches on 3 targets, right at 60 yards. He caught a contested catch downfield that came when Notre Dame was in another one of those offensive lulls. And he just continues to be that guy for CJ Carr. CJ Carr doesn't use him like a security blanket, but Eli Raridan has emerged as a very consistent, reliable security blanket for CJ Carr in the Notre Dame offense.
Yeah, one of those catches on, I think, to convert a 3rd down early was just a spectacular catch. I'm throwing this up and you're going to go get it. And yeah, he definitely continues progress and become the player. I think Pete Sampson and yourself always talked about his ceiling to be. I know he hasn't been the red zone scoring threat that you think a 6'7" athlete like him could be, but he's doing a lot. He's really is that, as you said, security blanket. Impressive. And as people have noted in the comments, I'm not sure how much longer they're going to let me stay in this room. So I do want to jump over to the defense as well. Notre Dame 3 interceptions again. That puts them on 16 on the season, which coming into today would have ranked first nationally. And I think that's 12 over the last 4 games. So clearly they're starting to do a lot of havoc back there. And a couple of those interceptions today were key. Tay Johnson having 2 of them. I want to shout out Tim Priester, who on the pregame incident analysis picked Tay Johnson as his player to click and said he would have at least 1 interception. He dropped one early too. He could have had 3 and kind of maybe made up for it statistically by catching one where he was sitting down and the ball just kind of fell into his lap. But all over the field today and continues to impress.
Here we go. Likely an Alan Wazalewski stat. The guy is brilliant at tracking the minutia of Notre Dame football. But the Notre Dame football PR team pointing out the 12 passes intercepted by Notre Dame in the last 4 games are the most for the program over a 4-game stretch since 1977, when the team also intercepted 12. And that 77 team had 13 in a 4-game stretch from September 24th through October 22nd. So Notre Dame finally taking the ball away. Significant. One other thing we have not touched on, a horrible, horrible oversight by me as your host. 12 TFLs today for the Irish defense, Drew. 12 TFLs for a team that the entire opening month of the season couldn't have gotten a TFL if there hadn't been an offensive line opposing them. We couldn't see them get a TFL for anything early in the season, particularly in the 2 losses to Miami and to Texas A&M, but it extended beyond that. But 12 TFLs today, in addition to the work pilfering passes in the secondary.
Yeah, that is incredible. I mean, yeah, the defense, they definitely gave up some big plays. There were definitely some times where it looked a little reminiscent, the past defense did, of what you saw earlier, but at least this time it came with all those havoc plays, as you just referenced. Like, that is something that you can get away with, maybe giving up some of those big plays, as long as you get those big negative plays that force them to get off the field or kick a field goal or punt or whatever have you. So I think those were huge. And they even honestly could have had more. Like Kingston Villa said, overran a sack. That is what let the Grayson James kind of escape and pick up a big 3rd down conversion. But that's one of those that he just needed to be a little more disciplined and wait, and probably either were forced an incompletion or actually gotten the sack. But they were getting into the backfield a lot. For the most part, they were disciplined, and that was definitely huge in the game, despite James having a fairly efficient line on the day, completing 68% of his passes for 240 yards. But again, they did pick him off twice. And Dylan Lonergan, who started the game, once. So those were all pretty significant, and a big reason why Boston College only scored once on, albeit Leonard Moore, on a defensive pass interference in that play too. You don't see that very often. So if Notre Dame is going to give up a touchdown, that's the one player you're pretty surprised that happened to.
You know, you referenced the James there, and let's in talking about all this bad special teams, let's talk about good special teams. James Rendell continues to be a super effective and steady punter for the Fighting Irish. He punted twice today, averaged 42.5 yards, didn't give up anything in punt return yards. Both of those punts were downed inside the 20. I think one of those down by Will Pauling right at the 1-yard line. So effective work from James Rendell. We noted the other day, I think that now gives him 11 punts inside the 20 on the season. And this Notre Dame defense is coming along, Drew, that when James Rendell is punting like that, you're asking an awful lot of the opposition to try and go 90, 85 yards, 95 yards against the Notre Dame defense that is growing and getting better and better every single week.
Yes, it's quite impressive just how much better he gets. I mean, I'm thinking back to even part of the fall camp, he had a couple punts that he shanked off to like the 50-yard line, and it wasn't clear that he was going to be this type of player. Who knows what they were working on that day? Maybe he was just part of a drill or something like that. But clearly, 2 years into his football playing career, after having that Australian rules football background, he's really picked up the game, looks very comfortable back there. And again, like you, if they're close, you expect him to have a punt that's down right around inside like the 5 sometimes, gets a lot of good hang time. I also like that because teams are so apprehensive to rush the punt and really try and block it, as Tim O'Malley, I know, has noted, he takes advantage of that extra time he knows he might have really well, which that shows a level of comfortability back there. Like if we're just all need to get this off, but he feels much more relaxed, which is not something you saw throughout most of last year when he was really getting used to playing in front of crowds of this size. You don't see a lot of stadiums this size in Australia, even for as big as rugby is. This is definitely much higher caliber. College football stadiums are huge compared to what you see even at the professional ranks here too. So
yeah, and again, officially 10 punts downed inside the 20-yard line this year for James Rendell. He still has only allowed 2 punts to be returned over the balance of this season, totaling 11 yards. Neither of those punts a return that happened today. And then a little bit more on a positive injury note, as it continues to be a mystery wrapped inside of an enigma with Jaden Greathouse not returning for the Notre Dame offense. Devontae Smith able to return today, able to to record a couple of tackles, also able to record one of the 7 pass breakups for the Notre Dame defense. Certainly that's encouraging, as is the play of Luke Talich, who had a key pass breakup on a 4th down play early in this game. Again, bring those guys up because Notre Dame continues to find diversity in players stepping up.
Yes, and I think, this is just an excellent overall game for most of the safeties. I mean, Stroman had a few missed tackles, but overall, you mentioned those 3, Talich, Schuler, Tay Johnson. You really have a lot of different players. So you're right. You've found one from Fort Wayne, another guy from New Jersey, and another guy from Cody, Wyoming. So you find these different types of skill sets, guys from all over, really contributing to their success in the defensive backfield tonight.
Drew, anything else you want to add or note as we wrap up this Notre Dame 25-10 victory against Boston College on the road here on the Irish Illustrated Overtime Show? Anything else you want to utilize or point out to put a bow on this game? An ugly win for the Irish, but nonetheless a win. Their offense was only on the field 25 and a half minutes, 458 yards of total offense, penalized 7 times, but 9 penalties for Boston College. Notre Dame turned it over just once. They forced 3 turnovers, and they recorded 5 sacks among those 12 TFLs. I
think I'm very curious on what things look like on Tuesday. I think it would have been a little easier to predict had they gotten that big 28, 30-point win that I think most of us on Irish Illustrated predicted. So I'll be kind of curious with that. And as you mentioned too, there's a lot of teach tape. I mean, Marcus Freeman, even from what the little I saw on the broadcast or from up in the press box, looked very frustrated. I'm sure there's going to be a lot that there's going to go into this week of prep, especially for a team like Navy and then going into Pitt. So maybe this does give them the momentum they really need to kind of get those big wins over the 2 best teams they're going to face the rest of the way in the regular season over in those 2 programs. So that's pretty much what I'm curious about, what happens Tuesday, and then how does this really carry them into the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, Tuesday night, as we know, the college football playoff inaugural rankings of the 2025 field. The 12-13 person committee will be coming to you live from Grapevine, Texas at the Opryland Resort there. We will have full coverage on Irish Illustrated as well as Football Scoop. An ugly game, but a win nonetheless for Drew Mentock. For our producer, Tom Zwiller, I'm John Brice of both Football Scoop and Irish Illustrated. This has been Irish Illustrated's Overtime Live, recapping and cleaning up Notre Dame's 25-10 win at Boston College. Until the next one, enjoy this one. Have a great weekend.